Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and before we start today's show, I wanted to talk to all the guitar players out there about something really interesting. If you're a guitar player, or probably any other kind of musician, or if you know a musician who's looking to make some more money without having to tour or go on the road, or put up with any of the other BS that musicians normally have to deal with, then what I'm about to tell you is probably the most exciting and important message you'll ever hear. As a business guy who just happens to play guitar, one of the first things I realized after interviewing, say, the first 50 or so guitar players was that if I was going to get into this business today, the first thing I'd look at doing is learning how to license your music. And by licensing music, I mean getting your music inserted into movies, television shows, and commercials. And here's why. There are 4 reasons, actually. First of all, focusing on record deals, publishing, and touring means that you're putting your destiny in someone else's hands. You're at the whim of someone who has literally thousands of other people competing for their attention, many of whom, frankly, may have music with more commercial appeal than your music has, which means you get what's ever left over as far as attention from that particular manager, publisher, publicist, or booking agent, right? And I don't know how you feel, but for me, I'm totally uncomfortable leaving my destiny and my family's financial future up to someone else. Second, I've learned in business that if you work in areas that are less competitive and not as crowded, your likelihood of success goes up dramatically. And there are way less people competing to have their music licensed than there are trying to make records, get their songs published, and go on tour. In fact, there are so many people competing to play music, the average working musician today, by and large, earns the same or less money than they were making back in the 1970s and 1980s. Third, in the licensing business, it's not unusual to have one or more of your songs wind up paying you multiple times over and over again. In some cases, day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year. In fact, some songs you even get paid on multiple times over from a variety of sources because different people wind up licensing that same song from you. Many times you get paid for songs you recorded months or even years ago. So no work you do is ever wasted. Even if a particular song doesn't get picked up right now, there's a very good chance it can get picked up later. And the more music you write, the more opportunities you get for placements. The more placements, the more money you make, both up front as income from licensing fees and on the backside in terms of royalties for years to come. And the fourth reason I like this industry is that a free ebook has just been published, which pretty much takes you by the hand and shows you step by step how to get your music licensed. The book is less than 20 pages long, and it was written by Mike Elsner, who I interviewed in episode number 167 of this show. Mike's been doing this for over 14 years, and he's actually had over 2,000 songs licensed at this point in time. Now, I want you to pay attention to something because that means he's getting paid to license almost 150 songs per year. Now, keep in mind, most successful career musicians don't even get paid for 150 songs in total over a 30 or 40-year career, yet Mike's getting paid for this on an annual basis. And in this free ebook, you'll discover the 4 simple steps to licensing success, including step 1, which actually shows you how to get paid a significant upfront licensing fee as well as quarterly royalties. You'll learn how to get paid for learning how to play a new instrument. And I'm not kidding. He actually shows you an example of he basically practiced a new instrument and he licensed all the songs, and he walks you through this. In step 2, you'll learn how to quickly expand your song catalog by 5 to 6 times its current size without having to create literally anything new. That's right, you'll learn how to easily turn 10 songs into 50 to 60 songs in less than 5 minutes each. And each one of those new songs now becomes another new asset you can sell. You'll learn what to do, and maybe even more important, what not to do to get your music quickly noticed by music supervisors. And this one simple nugget alone easily makes the difference between regularly getting your music licensed and never getting it licensed at all. He'll show you 4 ways to get paid to license your music, and then you get to pick and choose which one of those 4 ways works best for you. And you'll also get to uncover little-known secrets to using common websites online to get free names of people who would want to license your music. And the other cool thing I like about this business is that you can run it all from your home studio. No ivory tower record label executives telling you what to play and how to play it, and no shady managers or backroom publishers with their own agenda telling you what to do. So download Mike's free ebook on music licensing right now. Just go to everyonelovesguitar.com/Mike. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/Mike, M-I-K-E. That's it, real simple. Let me know how you like the book, and now let's get on with the show. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and my next guest really needs no introduction, but he's just such a cool guy. I'll give him one anyway. And first of all, I got to say, if I was as good looking as him, we'd be doing videos instead of audios. But unfortunately, I got brains instead of good looks. At least that's what I try to rationalize myself. Anyway, my next guest has got an amazing voice. He's a great slide player. He writes beautiful songs and melodies. He plays a really tasty lead guitar, using a guitar every guitar player would love to own. I love his blues work on his latest album called Midnight Believer, and we'll be chatting about it today with our guest, Leroy Parnell. Man, thank you so much. Let me tell people a little bit more about you. First of all, I had a good opportunity to talk to Leroy. He's just funny as hell, nicest guy you'll ever meet. After earning a publishing contract and a regular spot at the famed Bluebird Cafe, Leroy launched his solo career, which contained many hits, including the number one hit, A Little Bit of You, 2 number 2 hits, Tender Moment, and What Kind of Fool Do You Think I Am, and I think 7 other top 10 hits, correct? Or 4 other top 10 hits. He's got 2 Grammy Award nominations for his instrumental tracks, Catwalk and Mama Screw Your Wig On Tight. And Gibson made Leroy a signature 57 Les Paul Goldtop guitar modeled after the only guitar he owned, at least legend has it, from the time he was 15 until well into his 30s. In 2011, Leroy was inducted into the Texas Heritage Songwriters Hall of Fame, joining composers like Chris Christopherson, Rodney Crowell, J.D. Souther, Willie Nelson, Guy Clark, and many others. In 2017, he released his first album in 11 years called Midnight Believer, which made the AllMusic Best of 2017 favorite blues albums list. It's a real pretty record, and again, we're going to talk about some of the tracks on it today. Man, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, Craig. Thank you. This, for those of you listening, thanks, Craig, and my my inability to deal with digital technology. This is our second attempt, but we made it.
We made it. We're here, man.
I called. I think I rung you or called you or whatever you do on Skype at like 10:30 or 11 o'clock your time, and I apologize.
No, it's all good, man.
But it was just a trial run. I just knew I'd screw this up. So, but lo and behold, here we are.
It was worth it to hear the message you left me. I was hysterical just listening to that. So you can do that anytime. Man, tell me about playing in New York, because, seeing that you come from Texas, I could see you playing clubs in Austin, Houston, Dallas, and Fort Worth. That's kind of expected, but I was surprised to see that you played in New York in your bio. I was curious, where you played up there, how those gigs came about, and how'd you like it?
A bunch. And it's important to note, I think in the sort of the late 70s up into the mid 80s, maybe not quite that far, but like to 84, I'd say. Texas was kind of chic to be from Texas and New York. I mean, you had the Grace Jones, David Bowie crowd, and then you had Kinky Friedman. So I ended up going Kinky band for a little while, and then we remained very close friends and still are today. And he was working the Lone Star there at 13th Street and 5th Ave. And New York, if you're a New Yorker, it's in you. And some people don't get it. I did. It's a little tough for me now. I was just up there again, and New York's a little tough for me now. But I will say this, the audiences up there are the greatest in the world, in my opinion. I mean, they're wonderful. They know how. I mean, if they're going to know about you, they're going to know everything about you.
That's cool.
Yeah, they're a wonderful audience. So that is, and the whole Cosmic Cowboy thing was going on at Texas, which interestingly enough, we're getting ready to have a Country Music Hall of Fame they're doing a whole new thing. They have these. I don't know how long they run, 3 or 4 years, where they feature a certain type of music or a certain artist or whatever. And so we were just up in Colorado at Steamboat Springs, Colorado, for the Music Fest. And Gary P. Nunn, Bob Livingston, and a lot of these guys who were part of that whole thing that was going on in Texas at the time were there. And we ended up playing with these guys. And it was like a dream come true. You know, it was like all this music has come back to... It's all come back around, you know. The whole Texas chic thing that we were talking about in New York, it's happening again. And it's odd because it's the children or even the grandchildren of the people who were there in the beginning. There was a great book written about that called The Improbable Rise of Redneck Rock by Jan Reed. And it was just a fantastic time. And I loved what was going on in Texas. But, you know, I'd lived there my whole life. And a little door opened up in New York City. And I didn't know a soul up there except a dude that he said he worked for William Morris. Well, that's true. He did. But he worked in the mail room. And so I hung all my hopes on this guy, and I drive to New York City, don't know a soul, except I got this number for this guy that I'd met in Austin. And lo and behold, he worked in the mailroom. And the poor guy felt so bad because he said, oh my God, this guy has left his family, he's left his home, and he has moved to New York City on my recommendation. And he knew that Buddy Miller was leaving Kinky Friedman's band and moving to Texas, strangely enough, Buddy and Julie. And he said, well, I happen to know that Kinky Friedman's looking for a guitar player. And he said, I can put you guys together and we'll see what happens. So to make a long story a little bit shorter, that's what happened. And I was there for, I don't know, about a year and a half, something like that, off and on. And then subsequently, I've been there, you know, I don't know, New York's sort of been a second home, but it wears thin on me these days. I don't know why, you know.
It's changed a lot. It's not as like, so you were in 13th and 5th. That's like right in the heart of the West Village, sort of the tip of it, at least. And it's not the same. It's not as eclectic. It's not a lot of New Yorkers there anymore is the problem. It's a lot of, nobody could afford to live there anymore, man.
No, it is. It's you're absolutely right. You know, there Starbucks and Bad Breath and Beyond, and
yep.
You know, all these the place of all these wonderful old Spanish gentlemen in my neighborhood. I lived in Chelsea, and
man, that's changed dramatically. Yeah.
Oh, it was, you know, it was like that far away from Blade Runner.
Yeah. It was, man. Have you seen the Chelsea market they have there now? That
no.
Big, it's just this giant building right on like 16th and 10th, and it's like 50, you know, more of them Starbucks kind of stores in there. Yeah. It's
well, you know, I guess, you know, my dad I used to really have, I just felt when I saw all these people moving to Austin, and I just saw it just going, oh no, it's Nirvana lost, you know. But he had a good attitude about it. He said, you know, the town's either growing or it's dying. It doesn't stay the same.
It's very true.
The old man was usually right.
Well, cool, man. I read somewhere that Barry Beckett was your first producer.
That is true. Thankfully, looking back on it, and I can speak very frankly about this now, back in the day, you had to be politically correct, because you might actually get another record deal. They don't exist anymore. I mean, they do, but not the way they did then, Sorry, Greg, I'm moving around. But of all the guys that I saw in Nashville, Barry was the only person that I could find that had anything to do with what I did. He was an R&B guy from Muscle Shoals. Yeah, it was a fortuitous meeting. There's no question about it, because Barry understood what I was trying to do, what I was trying to get at, because I was 30 when I moved up here, 31. So I was no spring chicken even then in the music business. And we knew we had to get this thing happening pretty quick, or they were going to lose interest. You know how the pop music world works. And country music, make no mistake about it, that's what it is. Roots music, not so. It doesn't matter. Actually, I think that you actually get rewarded for hanging around that long in roots music.
In roots music?
Yeah, like blues and country.
Yes.
I suppose folk, although I don't know very much about folk music. But in that way, you kind of get rewarded for it, but you get penalized for it in any kind of popular music, be it country or rock or.
When you say penalized, you mean like if you don't strike while you're hot, you're toast. It's like it's the flavor of the day, pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it was told to me in no uncertain terms. When we put the first album out, Leroy Parnell, which had Ought to Be a Law and Crocodile Tears, those songs on it. We sold 30,000 copies of it, which was a huge failure back then. Today, they throw you a parade.
Yeah, right.
But then, not so much. And they told me, they said, I guess the record had been out maybe 5 months, something like that. And they sat me down, the label head and the two guys that were right under him said, look, we want you to continue to make records here, but the only way we can do that is if we're successful at this. Which meant, they were looking at going gold or,
Which at the time, what was gold? 500?
100,000.
Okay, right. I think someone told me they changed it now because of all the bootlegging and, yeah.
I got close to 500,000. I almost bought like 60,000 records myself. Just a gold record.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, to get that close and not, I could smell the barn from there, as we say.
Yeah, sure.
No go. No. I think we sold I think it was right at 440,000 records. And that was of Love Without Mercy or On the Road. I can't remember which one it was, but it's all ancient history now, Craig, but.
Do you know a session guy named Mike Durham?
He used to play in my band.
Okay, so he's a hell of a good player then, But he told me a story about Barry. He said that Barry had a sign. I got to be honest, I've interviewed 200 people. I don't remember. I'd be lying if I said I remember. I remember the feeling I have with a person, but I can't remember all the individual details, obviously. But I remember this story. He said Barry had a sign outside his office. It said, "Be careful of the toes you step on today, because they may be attached to the ass you need to kiss." Be careful of the toes you step on the way up today, because they may be attached to the ass you need to kiss on the way down tomorrow. Is that a Beckett-ism?
I don't remember saying that.
That's what Mike told me. That's hysterical.
I think Barry was sort of a gentle giant, and he taught me about feel. He taught me about groove. He taught me about. I remember one particular conversation we had. He was trying to help me learn how to deliver a line in a song, and he said, there's a lot of different ways to say. And he was just using, for instance, I'm going to Nashville. Well, you can say it like, well, I'm going to Nashville. Or you can say, well, I'm going to Nashville. Or you can say, I'm going to Nashville. I can't imagine saying it like that. But, yeah. But going back to the Barry thing, the Barry Beckett, and he used Reggie a lot. They had made so many records together, everything from the soul records that they made together. So what's that guitar behind your head?
So, man, I got that 335 when I was in Nashville. Do you know a guy named John Prestia? He's Tim McGraw's guitar tech.
Seems like I do.
He's been his tech 20 years. I'm sure you've ran into each other. So I wanted to buy a 335, and it was one on Craigslist, and I had seen it. And Chris Lusinger? He plays on Garth Brooks. So I happened to be on the phone with him. I said, Chris, what do you think of this? And he said, the thing is, Craig, it has a Bigsby that was put on aftermarket, so you got to be careful. And he goes, I would really avoid that. And I said, okay, thank you. Because I guess, I had visions in my mind of some guy in his garage just drilling holes in the guitar, right? I don't know what's going on.
Could have been Joe Pleasure put it on,
Right. Well, it turns out this guy, John Prestia, called the guy because he's like a real guitar geek, and the guy worked at Gibson.
Oh.
So they put it on right there. The guy came over to John's house when I was in town. We both played it. I loved it. I said, John, what do you think? He said, I'll buy it if you don't. And I said, okay, sold.
Proof's in the pudding.
Yeah, so it's a 2014, but it looks like, an old style with the dots.
Oh, yeah. Great looking guitar.
Yeah, it plays great. I'm not a big guy. I'm only 5'9". It's got, the neck is nice and slim, so it fits my fingers really nicely. Yeah. So I love it, man. I haven't played much else since I.
Great looking guitar.
Thanks, man. I really like
it. That's my favorite electric guitar is a 335.
Not your Goldtop?
I can't. Well, see, muscle memory and everything being what it is. I've been playing a Goldtop so long, or a Les Paul for so long, that I can. Lindy Fralin paid me a great compliment. We were playing in D.C. and Lindy and a dear friend of mine who is friends with Lindy came out to the show, and he said, I've never seen anybody work a 2 pickup system like that. He's not even looking. He never looks. And I know exactly where I am. And it's where that guitar hangs. And I love Strats, and I used to play Strats, and I got used to that. And I love a 335. The sound of a 335 is my favorite. And I love. I have a Tele that is one of those Mexican road worn Teles.
Sure.
And I swear that thing. I couldn't find a Tele I could get along with until I met that guitar, and that it was inexpensive, and like my friend Jack Pearson.
He plays Squires, doesn't he?
Yeah, he plays the cheapest guitars you can. Well, I say that plays cheaper guitars. He recently bought a new Martin that he was back. Jack and I have been playing together for 40 years.
Holy shit! How do you know him so long?
I happen to be coming through Nashville. He's from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And I was coming through Nashville. I was going, we were playing a little old hotel bar, just picking up a little cash. And this fella who's still with him as his buddy, I'd say he's his tech, but really Mike's his buddy. He came up to him. Jack was so painfully shy, he wouldn't say anything. He says, "Well, I got this guy over here. He'd like to sit in." And I thought, "Oh Lord, okay. Well, we were playing 4 sets, so I said, well, tell him to come up on the 4th set and play. And there wasn't anything for him to plug into but a custom PA, a 315, I believe it was a 315 and a solid state head, rolling pleated custom. And he plugged, I don't even remember what kind of guitar he had, but plugged into it. And I thought, God, this guy's a genius. I mean, he was 17. And he said, I want to join your band after the thing. And we were all just buzzing, because we had a 4-piece, me, keys, bass and drums. And I said, well, I'd love for you to join my band, but don't you go to school? And he said, well, I don't ever go, and the way Jack talked. And I said, well, I don't know what to do about this. He said, well, would you come talk to my daddy? Well, we leave for New York in the morning. And so some of this is urban legend, and it gets some of it. I wonder how much is that. The facts are, I did go to his daddy the next morning, and I said, your son is a brilliant guitarist. He's a brilliant musician. He has a brilliant mind. And I was probably, 22, maybe 21, 22.
How old are you now? You're 61?
61.
When are you going to be 62?
December. I still have a little time left. So his daddy said, he never even looked up at me. He sort of sat in his chair and just kind of smoked Chesterfields, I think.
Holy shit.
Just sit there and watch that TV. And I was talking to Blue Street, talking to it. And I didn't think he was paying any attention to me at all. And then eventually he said, well, boy, go get your bag. He said, this man wants to give you a job. And I said, well, I'll take him to Austin. He lived with me, and he'll be fine. Nothing's gonna happen. I'll take care of him, and I did. And so Jack left with me and was gone from Tennessee for a year and a half. And we went to Austin, and I found an audio tape not long ago of me and Jack and Stevie Vaughn playing together.
Really?
On Mondays at the Rome Inn, a place that was just a little blues bar, that we played on Monday nights because we were coming in from the road. Stevie, I remember one night he said, let me play your guitar and you play mine. Of course, he tuned a half step down.
Yeah.
E flat. And but he used big strings and, of course, a long scale on the Fender. And it was he never could get comfortable, and I never could get comfortable either one, so we swapped back. But, it was just a brief thing. But Stevie was getting into the story here in the guitar business that we're talking about. It's important to note, if I could cut through some years here for you.
Yeah.
Growing up in where I did grow up, near Fort Worth, Texas, about 60 miles from Fort Worth, Texas. The Dallas-Fort Worth Metro, the Metroplex, what they call the Metroplex, everybody was touched severely by Freddie King.
That's why I got that 335. I grew up listening to him. That guy was magic.
He was so powerful. And I'll tell you what the thing was interesting about the guy to me is that he was such a kind man.
Oh, was he?
He was so gentle. He was such a kind, gentle person. And but yet he had this, he was scary to watch, and because he lived in Dallas, we were able to see him more than we were able to see just about anybody. You know, Delbert and him. And it showed up in my music. Delbert and him. You know, Delbert was very important in my music, as was Freddie King. And these guys, and you know, this is a long lineage, because you got to take it back to T-Bone Walker, who came from Dallas and Deep Ellum. Actually, they're from the same little town in East Texas. So Freddie and T-Bone are from this Gilmer, Texas, same little town. And then I believe T-Bone was I was pretty sure he carried blind Leonard Jefferson's. Of course he could not see, hence the name. But I think T-Bone was sort of his little roadie guy, you know, kind of led him around for a little while anyway. And then T-Bone started playing around Deep Ellum, which was where all the black clubs were back then. And then eventually migrated, like everybody else did, out to the West Coast. And then took the blues uptown. And then B.B. took it from him. And then we all learned from the elegance of B.B. King and all that. But Freddie was the meat and potatoes of the bunch. In my mind.
Sure.
You know, Albert was the frightening one. I mean, I saw him too, met him, shook that man's hand, and that was not something you'd forget. If there's anything unique I can share with you, it's these little tidbits that I'm talking to you about now. So many guitar players came from that era, and that era. But the guys that, like there was in Dallas, there was guys like Rocky Athos.
Yeah, I remember that guy.
Hot guitar player. And it was like whoever could play Jeff's Boogie and could play it the fastest and most, you know, succinctly, kind of won the crown, right? Well, Jimmy could do all that stuff. He could play like any of those English cats could play. But he chose not to. You know, he went for a minimalistic approach, and because of that, he sort of set himself apart. I would say the only other person that I could put in that same ballpark would be Anson. And they are different, yes, but their approach is very much the same. And you know, I do the same thing. Not nearly as well as those boys do, but you take a couple of notes and you make it say everything you need to make it say, just in a couple of notes. And it's how you hit it, and it's where you let it land, and if you're going to pull it sharp to create tension or let it fall flat to release the tension. None of that stuff you think about when you're doing it, but it's all happening all the time. And that's conversation. That's just guitar conversation.
So do you like a guy like one of my favorite, if not my favorite, guitar players has been over my whole life is David Gilmour. Because to me, he says so much without, you know, a flurry.
Oh. Well, no, there's no need for that.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, if you listen to B.B. King live at the Regal, probably the greatest live blues record ever made, I think. And, you know, Every Day Out of the Blues, I believe, is the first song on that album. And when he hits that first note, and his shake that he had on it, I mean, he just tore me up. I just couldn't stand it. You know, I still can't. I listened to it and got to know him really well, got to play with him on many occasions. As a matter of fact, Steve Cropper and I, thanks to Steve, invited me to come out to Vegas for the opening of B.B. King's club at the Venetian, I believe it was. That's closed now, I do believe. But it was me, Robert Cray, Pat Metheny, believe, Willie Nelson, because Willie was BB's, I believe it was B's 80th birthday, and I could be wrong about that, but I believe it was. And we went out there, and we stayed about a week. So there was Buddy, Cropper, and Robert Cray.
What's he doing nowadays, Robert Cray?
Man, I tell you what, he's on fire right now. He's Steve Jordan got a hold of him, and they went back and they grabbed all that High Records, Willie Mitchell stuff that, of course, Al Green's music was born out of that studio. And I recorded, just a little side note, I somehow or another, I don't even remember how it happened, but I got a call, said, would you come over to Blackbird? And Ronnie Beckett Brooks is making a record, and I want you to come up put some slide on the record. So I went over there and ended up staying like 2 or 3 days, just hanging with those guys.
Wow.
It was much fun, Steve. And then, incidentally, if you're ever in New York City, again, there's a place called Joe's Pub, and it's like Midtown, like 58th, 9th, that area over there. And it's partially, I believe Steve owns part of that. Maybe he doesn't own it, but he's part of it somehow or another. But
Steve Cropper?
No, Steve Jordan.
Steve Jordan, okay. Yeah, I'll be up there in May.
Yeah, go by and say hi to Joe. I can't remember Joe's last name right now, but he's a great guy. And they've got, one thing that I remember is I played the first time I ever really played through a really great Tweed Twin. And they had a Tweed Bassman there too. 59.
Wow.
Tweed Bassman. And like a 50, I don't know, 58, 59. And I'm a Tweed freak. That's my favorite era of amp ever. Leo had it right from the get-go. Those amps have something about them that I don't even know how to explain it, except they just kind of help you. They help you a lot. They give you something back. If you're showing them love, they're going to show it back to you. But they had both those amps in that room, and I played a showcase there 3 years ago. APAP.
Up at Joe's Pub.
That's where we did our showcase, was at Joe's Pub, like 4 shows, 4 different days, 4 shows. And but anyway, Steve Jordan got a hold of, because Robert's got such a beautiful voice, and he's got the whole package, and they kind of went back in that. It's kind of a neo soul thing that they're doing now on this new stuff, and he like waxed them at the Americana Fest last year. He took the cake. No question about it. I wasn't there. Lisa was there. I had to go. I had to work, damn it. And, yeah. Hate
when that happens.
Yeah. And I'm sure I didn't make any money, but I'll miss the show. But she just said, honey, Robert Cray just killed it. And it's that minimalistic way that they recorded that stuff. And the way they approached it too, it was like less is more. Space, space is another member of the band if you'll just let it be there.
Man, that's a great quote.
Well, it certainly has helped me. I'll tell you that, because lots of times we couldn't afford to have as many members on stage as we'd like to have. But
did you ever hear Freddie when he was in his not funk stage, but
Burglar?
yeah, like the he's got this one tune, and it was called different things. It's called Boogie Chillin', is really the name of it. Man, I have a video of that. It's just fun, like the beginning, just everything he does on it. And he's got the keyboard, the beat, it's like a Leslie, I think it sounds like, the old school. It's just like, I got goosebumps right now just thinking. I mean, that's just so powerful.
Oh,
it's just such a powerful guitar player he was, man.
He was frightening, actually. The Three Kings. I've done one guitar camp, and this is before Bonamassa came out and did his Three Kings thing. But that's what I did the weekend on, was the Three Kings, and it wasn't so much to show my students how to play the stuff, but more how to approach the stuff. Because each of those guys, BB had this elegance about him. And while, his late 50s, early 60s stuff, he was definitely on fire, and approached it much differently than he did after he got on ABC. And, the whole, his style, he was with us for so long that you got to see his style change over the years. Freddie wasn't with us that long, but man, he was on fire.
Really?
He was just frightening to me.
Honestly, man, I mean, he'd be one of my desert island guys. Is Freddie King. He just, there's something to, he had a lot of. I remember sitting in my room as a kid, listening to Freddie King. He got me through a lot of shitty days, to be honest with you. Just listening to the good vibes he was putting out, man.
Yeah. Well, he was a sweet guy. He was a really good man. And Louis Stevens, who played piano with me for a while, was the only white cat in his band that I ever knew about. Played piano, and he was from Fort Worth. There again, here we go back to that DFW.
What was different about Dallas and Fort Worth? You said they were drastically different.
Well, Fort Worth was kind of, back in the day, growing up, and that being our metropolitan area that we would, go to hear music or buy pot or whatever, you were going to do.
That's so funny. Even the pot was different between Dallas and Fort Worth.
We had ragweed in Fort Worth, and I was much more of a Fort Worth kind of guy than I was a Dallas kind of guy. But that said, the Dallas guys had they were a little more progressive, and there was it was a city, it was like Fort Worth was a big town, Dallas was more of a city. They kind of fancied themselves to be that way, so therefore they were. Fort Worth didn't want to be a big city; it wanted to be a big town, and it still is. And I love Fort Worth. I love Fort Worth. I mean, it's just it's the most Texas town to me of all of the big towns in Texas. Fort Worth is. Paul Burka wrote one time in the Texas Monthly. He said, "If Austin kisses the hand that feeds it, and Dallas bites the hand that feeds it, Fort Worth must surely shake the hand that feeds it."
Do you read a lot? You seem like you read a lot.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you have a good memory.
I'm self-educated. I couldn't stay in school, so I didn't do much of it.
But you know what, though? If you read, like, my whole marketing career is all stuff I've learned how to do through reading. I mean, you have to actually do this stuff. I mean, if you're going to, you can't just read about it. Like if you're reading about playing guitar, you're not going to be a great guitar player. You actually got to pick it up. But, I mean, seriously, some people think, they take the that old book, Think and Grow Rich. They think that they take that literally, They think,
I didn't write it here.
Yeah. If I think about it, that's not really how it works. But, you just seem pretty well read. You could always tell someone who's kind of well read.
Well, I think a lot of times creative types, we didn't have Montessori schools, that kind of thing, when we were growing up. But had we had them, I think I would have been intensely interested in school. I think I would have been like an ace student. But literature, history, geography, but math left me cold. I didn't get it. I still don't. My son, who's my little fella, Jack, who's 6, he's a math genius and he loves it. I mean, he just constantly says, "Dad, what's 118 7? Now, quick." It's like, how do you do that? But he does.
Yeah.
So his acuity is, that's where that's where his brain seems to function. And I've never pushed my kids, any of them, to play music,
Do any of them play music? Your daughter sings. I saw that video.
She does. She sings quite well, actually. But, and Jack probably would be the one. And maybe he will, but, I don't push it on him. I kind of feel like, I couldn't wait to, the Keith Richards children's book, Gus and Me, which is he reads, and his voice is so soothing. Who would think Keith would ever write a children's book? But he actually has a real heart for that. And this, I don't know if you've heard this book or not. If you ever, you do have a grandchild. Now that I think about it.
I do. 3-year-old girl. Get her Gus and Me.
Huh?
Get her Gus and Me. Is that the book? Oh, I read about that. Gus was his grandfather, correct? Okay, right. I'll buy that.
And he talked about the guitar was just out of reach for Keith. He wasn't tall enough to reach the guitar, and his grandfather, Augustus, told him, he said, when you're able to reach the guitar, then you can take it down and have a go, as the English say, as you know.
Yeah.
Have a go. And because of that, because you can't quite get to it, there's an attraction to it.
Oh yeah, we always want what you can't have.
Right. So anyway, I kind of took that approach with the kids, all of them. And Blake didn't go for it. That's my 37-year-old, and Allison would do it. And she, she picks up. I gave her one of my signatures because get to a certain age and you start making sure that people have what you want them to have. We're not guaranteed anything. So, and damned if she didn't just pick it up and start going. Wow, man! It must be in the genes. I don't know. But little Jack he's got all the swagger and the moves but he's just, we'll see we'll see if he goes for it. But he loved that Gus and Me, and I was listening to how Keith showcased that whole story, and it was about not being able to, just like, don't just hand it to them. Make it something unattainable to a degree, so they take it upon themselves to do something to win that.
Skin in the game, man.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
We're talking about.
I actually had a question about this. You had that song. I saw the video on YouTube for Daddies and Daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave you credit. I don't think I would have made it through that song without bursting out in tears. How did you do that? That had to be pretty emotional for you.
Yeah, it was. It was. It still is. I mean, I can't look at her if she's on stage with me singing it.
Okay, so that was the thing. You didn't look at her.
I can't.
I don't know. Yeah, I was. Yeah, I didn't know how that happened because I couldn't. I'd have been like.
Well, Sunny Days, which is off the new. Do you have the new record?
I do, and I wanted to ask you some questions about it.
Well, on Sunny Days on Midnight Believer, I can't look at anybody I love and sing that song.
Wow.
Me might be, and I could be wrong. Nope. Don't ever ask a writer to play you his best song. You don't know what it is. But to me, Sunny Days is probably the closest thing I have ever written to being an evergreen, something that's going to be around a lot longer than me. I love my life, and I love my family, and my family is really everything for me. Honestly, it really is. It was something Lisa said to me recently. She said, honey, she said, I go to people's Facebook pages and see what they like, and that kind of tells you what they're kind of into.
Sure.
She said everything you like is me or the kids.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's really true. And I love music. It's part of it too. But outside of that, I just don't, all that mess, all that.
Oh, I know. Politics and shit. I know. That's just.
Oh, well.
It's a waste of time.
Don't get me started there. No.
Are either of your parents, your dad passed, and he says, your mom alive?
They
both passed.
Yeah. They my mom, dad, and my grandmother all died in 5 weeks of one another in the summer of 1990.
Man,
all related. It just.
Wow, that had to be a rough summer for you.
It was a record. It was my record. My first album had just come out, and so I was out on the road promoting that and flying home for funerals. It was a strange time, but it's just life.
Yeah,
it's all right.
No, I hear you. Let's talk about your album.
Okay. That'll make Jason happy.
First of all, I loved it. The new album is called Midnight Believer. Anybody who hasn't heard it, I would urge you to check it out immediately. It's a really cool album. It's a great blues record. Playing on it, engineering, mixing, super clean. It was neat when it had to be neat, and it was dirty when it had to be dirty. And I really enjoyed it. Hours in Between. Really dirty guitar on that. I was curious if that was your 57.
Yeah.
It was. Okay. And what were you playing it through, if you remember?
50-watt Marshall.
Plexi, old one?
The brush plate aluminum, about 1971 or 70.
Oh, man, that's the sound. You know what? Greg Martin, we've talked about him a couple of times.
Yes.
Did he turn you on? Because that's all he plays, man. He plays, his 58. And he's got 50-watt Marshalls all over the place. That's his whole deal.
Yeah,
and a cable.
He is he's the Marshall. He's the Marshall man. He knows way more about it than I'll ever know. But Greg, and we talked about the Plexi, and he said, "You know what, Leroy?" He said, "I don't think the Plexi, because I'd never owned a Plexi." And he said, "I don't think the Plexi's where you live. I don't think that. I think it's that." Early 70s, late 60s, that little era. When they moved over to L34s, from the L6s or
right.
50, whatever. The Marshall through, and now strangely enough, like a closed back cabinet, I can't do. So I do. I set it on top of a basement.
Okay.
And I just plug into this cheap 15-watt speakers. I've never blown one. Not with a Marshall, I haven't. And I have. How many do I have? I guess I have 3. One, and they're getting so old, man. I can't hardly, I can't hardly take them on the road anymore. I mean, as of late, I've been using the Matchless on the road with EL34s in the Matchless. I can't remember what it's.
They're great sounding amps, also.
Well, it is. It's what I like about. Let's see. This is a super cheap. Oh, a King Cobra. That's it. It's an EL34s in the power amp section. EF86 preamp tube, which is the Vox and running Class A. So it's a little bit of a different thing for me. And really, honestly, the reason I use the Matchless is because it's built like you can't blow it up, or I haven't been able to, and that's saying something.
In that song, you got some serious overtones, like biting ass overtones. Did you do anything particular, like amp or pedal wise, to get those overtones? And you had some very long sustain in there.
Well, I have, for a very, very long time, I have used it's a little pedal called a Moss Distortion. Did you ever see one of those, Ibanez?
I have.
And some people don't like them. To me, they're very transparent and very natural compression that happens with them. And it stays on all the time. I never take it off. And the Moss Distortion, and then just crank the amp, let them talk to you. I mean, you got to have that conversation.
The overtones in that song were killer, man. Some really badass playing in there. I really enjoyed that.
Well, thank you. I wanted to redo the solo because we cut that solo went down live and on the tracking date, and I wanted to fix it. And my engineer and Steve Fishel, who was in the control room, said, well, you can fix it if you want to, but I won't be in here when you do it.
Yeah, it's great, man. So you didn't do it. Yeah, it's fantastic. That was those overtones and that sustain made that thing. That was just really crushing it, man. That was just phenomenal.
That's Freddie King.
Yeah, it was just great. The whole thing was ripping.
It and Hair of the Dog both are Freddie King. And
I'll ask you about Hair of the Dog next. First, I just want to ask you about the title song, Midnight Believer. Again, the solo on the outro is great, and I swear to God, it was so good. I picked up my own Les Paul. When it was like a magnet, man. It was just like perfect to play with, It was the whole thing was perfect, man. And was there any backstory to that song?
Well, it's important to note on the whole album, Greg Marnhill, who wrote every single song on the record with me, had come to me and asked me, why aren't you making records anymore? And I know this has been written about before because I've talked about it before, but it really happened this way. He said, I said, well, Greg, I don't know. I just don't, usually I have a purpose and Jack had been born and I wanted to be home with him. And I wasn't thinking about music. I was just being dad, And so my head wasn't really in the game. But he said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we just start writing songs maybe once a week or something, get together once a week and write some songs.
He's in Nashville too?
Yeah. He's from New Orleans, which was an interesting. I think that shows itself too. The New Orleans, Texas marriage there. That's a natural thing that has been going on for many years in music history, in my opinion. But at any rate, Greg, we started, I think Too Far Gone was the first song that we wrote. And then they just kind of kept coming really quick. And so rather than work 1 day a week, we started working 2 days a week. And golly, we were writing these songs pretty quickly.
So I'm assuming you were feeling it too.
Yeah.
Okay. So you sort of like the universe sent him at the right time when you were ready to get back in the game, basically.
The record would not have happened without Greg Barnell. I can't give him credit enough for this, because he was the one that pushed me, and oftentimes that's the way it is. There's an impetus there with something that moves you toward a muse of some sort that's going to move you to, because it's a commitment, to create something like that. It's a commitment. You have to really apply yourself, and I don't make singles, I make albums, and I probably always will. I know that's not hip happening and the next thing on the blog, but to me, a record needs to take you on a little journey. Maybe I know still to this day, I listen to records every day. I still listen to music every day.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Do you?
Every day, every day. And I don't stream anything. I have, everything's loaded up on my iTunes. I have my kids laugh at me. They're like, Dad, why don't you get Apple Pay? I said, well, I got 50, 60,000 songs. And they said, well, why do you do that? I said, it's like a friend, right? It's like having this is like having 50,000 friends. Well, maybe not 50,000, half of them, let's say 25,000 friends, right? And so I could just pull up my friends, and I'm the same as you. When I want to hear this, I want to go on a little trip. It's like, just listening to a single is like you got a beautiful woman and you give her a kiss. It's like I'm missing the whole night is here, and we're just, so I want to hear the whole thing. I want to go on. I want to know the experience that the writer and the band meant me to have, and I want to kind of honor that and absorb it.
I understand. You want to honor. That's a good way to put it. Because they put a lot of work into this. Chances are.
Oh hell yeah, I know that. It's like anything you do is like people don't understand. You write a book, you write a record, and they think, oh, he made a record. Man, that's like drawn blood.
Well, it's dangerous business these days in this disposable society that we live in, where records are made, and gosh, I'm guilty of it myself. Making records in my bedroom or whatever, but the intent was never any different than it was walking into a proper recording studio with Barry Beckett and learning the ropes.
Sure.
Once I had learned how to do it, and I could do it more affordably in my own, because oftentimes I take too much time. I do think we have to move things along, because here I'm 61 and I have probably made half as many records as I should have made.
You mean if you're following on the norm? Like I noticed your average release was every 3 years, and then you had like an 11-year gap.
Yeah.
So but I think that goes back to maybe what we talked to earlier. If there's, I know me, if I had to write down list all the things I should have done or I shouldn't have done, it's like, you can't look backwards, man. It's just never, ever helpful.
No, I suppose not. Best we can do is just to do the next right thing. And I think moving forward here, I foresee there's a lot of records I want to make. There's a duet kind of record that I'd love to make. And I've talked to Flacco about doing something. He called me not long ago, and Flacco Jimenez, and said, he says, I think we still got a Grammy in us, man. Yeah, you might be right. You might be right. He said, well, let's give it a shot. And, when Flacco calls, you better answer it. But there's a lot of really, I missed not making a record with BB, which I could have. And there's just some other folks out there. Ry Cooder, I'd love to make a record with Ry Cooder. I think Ry is just monstrous. Certainly my friend Keb Mo, and what I'm so grateful to him.
He's in Nashville.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's here now. He and Taj have done a wonderful job, and I'm so grateful that they got a Grammy for their work. And that was hard work. I know it was hard work because I was around for part of it. But we're just surrounded by all these geniuses, and to be able to work with these people and not do it is kind of sacrilegious to me almost.
Yeah, I can understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's like having an opportunity and not taking it to some extent. I get it. Off topic, totally. What your ring? Where'd you get that? What is that from? That's got to be something. It looks like the old Baltimore Colts.
Well, it's a horseshoe ring.
Yeah.
Every knot on my head came from this ring.
That's a cool ring, man. I like that.
Thank you. It was my dad's, and when Dad died, we tried to get there. My brother and I tried to get there as quick as we could, but we didn't make it in time. But Mom had taken it off his hand and put it on mine, and it's been there ever since.
You the oldest?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many brothers and sisters?
A younger sister and a younger brother.
Younger sister and younger brother. Let me ask you about one more song.
Yeah.
Hair of the Dog.
Mm-hmm.
It rocks. And, when I first heard it, I was thinking Nazareth. You know that Nazareth?
Nazareth?
You know that song Nazareth by Nazareth called Hair of the Dog? You ever heard that? It's from like 1968.
Yeah. I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah, because I said, oh, that's an interesting cover to do. And, of course, there's nothing remotely like the song. Yeah, you've heard the song. You just don't know it as Hair
really?
of the... Yeah, because you've heard it. I know you've heard it, but they don't say Hair of the Dog or anything like that in the song.
Oh, they don't.
Yeah, just put it down and just write it down, Hair of the Dog. What made you call... Actually, that song was from 75. What made you call that song Hair of the Dog?
Well, it's the hook line of the chorus, That's the last line of the chorus. It's I'm so mush mouth sometimes that people have a hard time understanding me sometimes when I'm singing. So you might not have even recognized it when it went by, but yeah, the whole idea of the song was well, first time you have it, forms a habit. Next thing you know you just can't leave it alone. Hurts you right down to the bone. She's found your weakness, a shallow deepness. You fell to pieces the moment she whispered your name. Now you can't get her out of your veins. We don't do it live very often, so it's hard for me.
So the drug in this case was the woman.
Oh yeah.
That's shocking.
In the most
Now that I know you,
yeah.
it's a great song. It really rocks, man. I listened to it several times. I thought it was very cool.
Thank you, brother. That wide open, by the way. That's that 50-watt Marshall just seething. I mean, you know, those amps had. Since we're on a guitar, we're talking about guitar here. Jim Marshall built amps, kind of, you know, everything was built off the Fender Bassman. Everything was.
Right.
That was, yeah. And of course, Greg could tell you much more about it than I could. You know, Greg Martin could. I think he's got every Marshall amp ever made, or, you know, the ones that were important
from that era. Yes, I believe he does. He had.
Well, if anybody knows how to deal with one, he does.
Oh.
I mean, he's you know, it's funny, you know, Greg and I, the Headhunters and I showcased the same afternoon in Nashville. I would say it was probably been about early '89, and we played it was like one of those showcases where if I had to tell somebody not to do something, I would say, don't do what I did. Don't do that, because, you know, we had gotten a little following going in Nashville by playing the Bluebird on Monday nights. The Kink Snakes, which is Mike Henderson's band, a wonderful slide player, great rider, great slide player, and he and Kenny Greenberg and James Stroud, and I mean, they had a 4-0 band, and they had a great following. But he had Blue Mondays going at the Bluebird, and to take a break, I don't know if he was going on the road. I don't remember why, but I was riding. I had no money. At any rate, they took a break, and so Amy Curlin, who owned the Bluebird at that time, said, "Hey, would you be interested in taking over Henderson's spot on a Monday night to play Blue Mondays?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I would. I sure would. You know, I would. I mean, I was playing. Like I said, I was sitting in with somebody pretty much every night, because I only had enough money to last me 6 months up here, pay my child support back in Texas, and live in a mother-in-law apartment in East Nashville. I mean, it was close to the bone. I'd make a pot of pinto beans and cornbread, and that's what I would eat all week long to make this whole thing work. And
do you know Dave Rogers from Dave's Guitars?
Yeah.
I interviewed Dave, and he said the first...
Good guy.
Yeah, real good guy. And the first 5 years that he owned that shop, he did the exact same thing. He said he would make, not cornbread, they don't have that up in Minneapolis, but he said he'd make beans and whatever, and that's what he ate off of for 5 years. He said he put every dime he had back into the place. But that's why he's got a shop now that's, you know, probably one of the top 20 shops in the country as far as volume.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I bought 2 Blues Juniors from him when they came out with that cowboy. Well, it's a, you know, faux leather, but it looks like
like a cow.
Well, no, not like a cow, more like a saddle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I bought 2 of those from him. I like those lamps. They should drop a transformer in there that's has a little more heft. I think that would help that amp a lot. But the preamp section is quite good. The reverb could be better. But really, the idea of the amp for an inexpensive amp is a really good way to go. And lots of times, you know, when I'm going out and doing just sometimes the guy that called in just now, Adam Fleur, is the guy that goes with me on the road. And sometimes it's just me and he and I and Lisa, because she just adds. She adds so much in the way of, well, her vocal acuity is just unbelievable. I mean, she's one of the greatest singers I've ever heard in my life. And I'm not saying that just because I'm in love with her and crazy about her, but she really is that good. She had a record deal on B&A back about the same time of theirs too. But at any rate, sometimes it's just the two of us, and lots of times they'll ask me, you know, backline, what kind of amp do you want? And the one amp I hate to see coming at me is a twin reverb. I just can't. It's too loud. It's too hard. I can't get any squish out of it. I can't, you know. So lots of times I'll just ask for one of those little Blues Juniors, you know.
Yeah.
It gives you enough tone to deal with, and I'm a kind of an EQ guy, kind of freaky about EQ, and I know my frequencies, and you know, ringing out monitors, I'm your man. One of the things that you know, as you get older, and hopefully sooner than later, it happens to you, is it's just as important to find out who you ain't as it is to find out who you is.
Mm. Yeah, man.
Find that out, and then just hone in on that, and just go at it with all you got.
Yeah, it's a very liberating, like being yourself and being okay with that. And that doesn't happen. It didn't happen for me till I was older, anyway.
I don't know how these guys do it. You know, you look back at the Beatles, you know, and the Stones, and those guys were so young, but they had this sound, you know, that was uniquely theirs. The same with the Allman Brothers, you know.
Oh God, yeah.
You think about Dwayne, and he was 24 when he died, yet he'd made all those Pickett records and Aretha records.
Derek and the Dominoes.
Oh, it's just crazy. But you know, as you know. And Greg, you know, and I'll tell you, I really miss Greg. The two guys that have passed that I was close to, that I miss the most, is Haggard and Gregory.
You played with both of those guys.
Yeah.
Did you play with Red when he was with Merle?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Do you ever run into him? He's such a sweet guy.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, he's been trying to get me hooked up with this amp builder, Grammatico, out of Austin, who's building a really smoking bunch of amps down there. You know, he understands signal path, and he really understands feel. See, a lot of times people say, well, "How's the amp sound?" Well, you know, how it sounds is one thing, but how does it feel? I mean, that's, you know, when Grissom, and this is maybe urban legend, I don't know, but I've heard this about him. But when Grissom checks out an amp, he'll just grab it, mute the strings, and go. That tells him everything he needs to know, right?
Just for the feel, you mean?
Yeah.
He's a very smart guy. His playing, he leverages effects and sound really, really well.
Yeah.
You know, like he'll do a solo, and if he's got a distortion or he'll leverage, you know, he plays to maximize. You know, he doesn't just put a distortion pedal on so it sounds distorted. He says, okay, let's maximize this distortion, give it, you know what I'm saying? And he does he's a unique player when he does that stuff.
I think he's I think he's very, very good. I don't think, I played with Joe Ely a little bit in my early 20s. There happened to be a time when he was out there with Linda Ronstadt opening shows. I think it was a You're No Good tour for her. And I'd just been playing nightclubs and stuff in Austin. And Joe had been out to see us a time or two, and Jesse Taylor was playing guitar. Jesse was a great guitar player, all out, all the time. I mean, he was just wide open all the time. And Lloyd Maines, of course, playing steel guitar, and Joe had his. I think Joe's tremendous, just fabulous writer, entertainer. I mean, but anyway, Jesse had something that he had to do, and it turns out that Lloyd did too. And Joe called me and asked me. It was a Sunday night, I remember, about 10:30 at night. My phone rang, and it was Joe Ely, and he said, "Hey, can you go out on the road with me for a little while? Jesse and is going to be gone, and he's got to go do something." I don't know what it was. I can't imagine taking time off for a tour. But they had been in England opening for The Clash. And when they came back from England, everybody had cut their hair short. They all had pomade in their hair.
Oh, so they went like The Clash. They went like Joe Strummer.
That's right. Everything was in E, and everything was on 140 beats a minute. But he said, "Will you go with us and do this?" And I met him in Albuquerque, and I'd never played for a crowd like that before. I mean, there was 15,000 people out there, and I was used to seeing 100.
Wow. So what was that like?
It was an adjustment, especially when I was trying to cover Jesse's parts and cover Lloyd's parts as well on his steel parts with slide, and probably not very well either.
Well, everybody, you know what? It's real funny. Someone told me this when I started interviewing, maybe one of the first 20 interviews I had, and they said, "Here's a little joke about the top 10 guitar players are all sitting in a room together.
Yeah.
You talk to any one of them, and they were all worried about what the other 9 are doing." And
probably true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because everybody that I've spoken to is like top tier guitar player, and they all say this. And I've been fortunate; I haven't had anybody say to me, "Well, I know how good my shit does this thing." Everybody has. I haven't had that. I'm sure they're out there, but I haven't had them. Or maybe I haven't attracted them, and that's really good because I'd like to not attract them. No, seriously, I don't really work well with that. But and everybody's so humble. Like, I'm sure I'm not like what you just said. Everybody, I'm sure they do it better than me. But yeah, so everybody's very humble. But I'm sure he had a lot of people to call. And
yeah,
yeah. I mean, he called you not because he could pay you less money than the other guys because you weren't as good.
I don't remember what I got.
No, but you know what I'm saying. He didn't call. He's making a call. He's Joe Ely. He can call a lot of guys to do that gig with him, and he asked you because there's a reason.
There was attitude, and with Joe's music, so much of it, especially after he come back from after he had been to England and been with Strummer and the Cray and the Clash, he was like the whole attitude was so different. They were on fire, and he was, maybe he saw a little of that back in those days.
Let me ask you that. That's a good thing. That's a real good question. So you and I just met. we get along very well. But in talking to you, you seem like a very laid-back guy. And you might think the same of me, and if you said that, I would say, you haven't seen the other 54 years. So my question is to you, it's my experience in whether it's playing an instrument or drawing or any creative outlet, that part of that output that you do comes from fire, not from, peaches and cream. So have you mellowed over the last, X years? No. So where's that fire from? Like, you've done a good job. I'm really good with people. I don't see any, like, shortness or like hot-headedness. I mean, I'm sure you're no different than anybody else. You push them the wrong way, you're going to get, you bite the dragon bites back. But I don't get any sense of that, like when Gary Moore would play or Lance Lopez, when those guys play, you could see, man, these guys are pissed off. Nothing against them, but you could see, okay, like Lance is on fire when he plays, but he's like pissed off. You could see it. I don't get that out of you.
Well, it's probably not too different than yourself. People will say, Leroy, you're so laid back. And I'm thinking, you have no idea how loud.
Yeah, that's what people tell me, and I look at it and I say that. That's what I say. I say, man, well, you're seeing the end of 54 years of work.
Yeah. I'm exhausted. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, right. Okay.
I think plus, we were talking about savoring things. To me, it's the distilling of emotion to break it down to a note or two, to make sure that the audience gets or do the best job you can to make sure that they feel it, and a simple way of saying things is usually most effective, I think. So I think maybe, I had one lady tell me one time, it was a long time ago, I was playing a little nightclub somewhere in Austin, I think. And she said, you're a phony. Well, I've never been accused of that.
Yeah, right. I hear you.
And I said, well, what do you mean? I was curious why she was thinking that. And she said, well, you don't, you on stage, you're like this animal up there. And then down here, you're just like so laid back and mild-mannered and whatnot. And I said, well, let me ask you something. If I behaved the way I do on stage down here, would you want to talk to me? Or conversely, if I behaved up on stage the way I am down here, would you want to watch me? And that's not like some preconceived notion about how I'm going to be. Like I'm on stage, I'm going to really rock tonight. No, nothing.
Sure.
Like the crowd determines that. The music determines that. I'm just reacting to it. I'm just part of it. I didn't start it. I'm just a part of it. So I think as we become a little bit, it takes a long time. I think for most of us. It's like we're talking about the Allman Brothers and the Stones and the Beatles. They seem to have gotten there awfully quickly. They became who they were pretty quick. I mean, Greg sang with the conviction that he did.
On that first album.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What a voice.
his mother told him, said, he asked Geraldine one time, he said, "Mom, how did you like the record?" She goes, "Honey, you sound like a cross between a Hank Williams with the croup and James Brown with no lips."
What?
That's what his mother told him.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. But Dwayne played with that same kind of fury and that fire.
Yes.
I mean, I do believe that Dwayne kind of believed that he only had a little bit of time.
Oh, you think so? You think he had a premonition?
I do. I think he was Johnny Sandlin, who was his best friend, who was a very close friend of mine. As a matter of fact, that Tell the Truth album, I specifically used Sandlin to record that at Muscle Shoals. I think that was the last record that was ever recorded at Muscle Shoals Sound, I believe. I'm not sure about that, but I've been told that anyway. We had gone there to make I've always loved being at Muscle Shoals. I love making music. I made my first little record there when I was like 18. There was a pull to Muscle Shoals and the music that was made there. And there was Dwayne, I mean, he was sort of it was hard to be a long-haired hippie type fella in the South with a mixed band, meaning you had a black guy in the band. I mean, it was dangerous. Believe you me. I mean,
interesting.
I faced some rather questionable circumstances.
Really? And this is just, it's amazing when you think back it's 40 years ago. Well, it's 50 years ago, I guess, the 60s,
I know. Don't remind me. I can't believe it. But, yeah, man. I mean, I had, guys chasing after me with knives wanting to cut my hair off,
Wow.
Yeah.
Unreal. What's something that you have learned about yourself along this journey that you've been on?
Well, I had a really good mom and dad. I was very fortunate in that way. It wasn't idyllic in any sense of the matter, but I had a good Christian upbringing. Not that one way or another, I don't mean it that way. It's just that there were like, treat other people the way you like to be treated yourself.
Sure.
And that stuff really sticks with you, I think, in life, and you teach it to your own kids. Family is number one with me, and we've talked about that a little bit. And it's really just not that complicated. It's my writing is important to me. My family is important to me. The art that I leave behind is important to me. And that gets louder as you get older, I think. You probably find that true with your work that you're doing now. This stuff you're going to leave behind, And you want to say you were here for a reason. And what was, for me, it is like, as I've mentioned to you before, I probably made about half as many records as I should have made. So I got a lot of time. I got a lot to make up right now, and I feel the urgency of that.
Would you feel that? Let me ask you. Would you feel that anyway? Maybe more so now, but wouldn't you normally feel that anyway? That urgency?
Oh, I would like to say so. When you get I mean, I didn't sign a writing contract or a publishing contract rather, or a record deal in short fashion. I mean, like I was in my 30s when that all happened. But I look back on it, and there's this facade that happens when you're a little bit successful. And I wasn't wildly successful in those glory years, what we laughingly refer to as the glory years. I don't look at it that way. I look at it like it kind of you get real busy doing a lot of things that the publicist wants you to do, or the record company would have you do, or and sometimes the things that are really important kind of fall by the wayside. And that is, again, family. I just keep going back to that. And I guess the older I get, the louder it gets. And the work, the fruit of the labor gets louder and louder and louder. And it's like I have so much I want to do. And having a health scare like I did a few years ago really made that louder.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because you realize, wow, this thing isn't forever, This thing is really not going to last forever,
When that happened,
mm-hmm.
was it like, shit, this is not supposed to happen to me? Or was it because of your family history, I kind of expected it, or what? Like what?
No, I didn't expect it. I stepped off the stage in Roanoke, Virginia, or outside Roanoke, Virginia. But it's actually about 30 miles outside of Roanoke, Virginia. It seemed like it was about 90 miles by the time we finally got to the hospital. But it was noon. I was pushing so hard. And again, I'll tell young artists, young writers, young players, it's so much easier to keep it going than to take a long break from this thing and then try to make come back. It's so much harder than I would have ever imagined it to be. It's not impossible. And as this is my only means of income, and not only that, just expressing myself as well, I don't really have a choice in the matter. It's not like I can go fall back on my marketing tools, like which is a blessing, I'm sure. But this is, it really wakes you up. Yeah. It wakes you up to what's important, and in a sense, I'm glad it happened. I'm not glad at what I know is probably, I mean.
You mean you're glad you had another level of awareness as a result of it happening, and it didn't just happen and you just went on blindly.
No.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, I can understand that.
It really forced me to stop and take an inventory of how I'd been living and how I was.
Which doesn't sound bad, to be honest.
No, it's not a bad thing.
No. But I mean, it doesn't sound like how you were living was bad.
No, I was. I mean, I was.
You have a career, and you're driven in it, and it's not like a bad thing. It's just I understand what you're saying.
I don't think I was. I was just working myself to death, and I wasn't really taking. I wasn't taking enough time to really, again, savor the moment.
Yeah.
I keep coming back to that for some reason, but
because that's where it's at, man. I know exactly what you're saying. I was in a similar situation, and it's hard when opportunity knocks. If you've never had it knocking before, at least for me, it's like if you working's not a problem. Never has. I've worked, and I'm sure the same as you. But when opportunity's knocking, if you feel like if you don't do it, shame on you. Well, at least I did anyway. Yeah.
What do they say about opportunity? You have to be ready for it, and you got to be prepared. So you're ready when it comes by, because when it comes by, you got to be able to reach out and grab it and take hold of it. Sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. But I don't. It's like keeping your chops up and keeping your guitar chops up. I'll be honest with you. I do not really rehearse or practice the way I know Jack Pearson does, and John Jorgensen and Joe Robinson, and I know these people work on their thing. Sometimes I do better when I just leave it alone and come at it. But that's the kind of player I am. I don't have a lot of.
But you're also, you're not doing the shit those guys, I mean, that like Jorgensen and Joe and those guys are doing either. Like, those guys are like, walking on tight, what is that? When they're on the little bicycle on the string and they're juggling 6 balls at once, man. If you're not sharp on that, you're going to fall off freaking wire, You're a different player, and I don't know that it warrants that either.
I don't know. I read once where Clapton said that, he never picks a guitar up when he's off the road. I mean, he has a little acoustic laying around the house, and that's kind of the way it is for us. I mean, if I'm home and I start listening to an Al Green record, or I start listening to a Chet Baker record, I want to figure out what it is that Chet was doing, and I'll start fiddling with it like that. But as to sit down and run scales and things like that, no, I don't. And Clapton says that he's better when he doesn't try to do that. I don't understand that really, because muscle memory being what it is, you kind of would think that would be the case, but really not so. Not for me.
Anyway. A guy who, I don't know if you know this guy, he practices a lot. He's in New York, Jim Campolongo.
Oh, God, yes.
I was talking to him because we had a conversation, and he's coming on the show in a few weeks, I think, and super nice guy, amazing player, as you know, and real unique. You can't even classify what he does, but
right.
He sent me an email one day. It was like 6 a.m. I'm like, wow, man, you're a musician. Do you know that? And he goes, no. He goes, I start my day. I'm up at like 4:30. And I'm like, wow, that's really impressive. What do you do? He goes, I practice for 3 hours. And I was like, yes. I was like, wow, he's super, super disciplined dude, man. Very, very admirable. Yeah.
Sure
oh, absolutely. Yeah. He's doing some wild stuff. I mean, he's a very interesting player.
He's in a zone of his own.
Yeah. He really is. Any hobbies or interests outside of music? Well, I guess you said reading. You read a lot.
Yeah, I do. I love. I'm sorry, that's my brother called. I tell you, having 3 kids and one of them being 6, that pretty much fills in your dance card.
Yeah, for sure.
The kids, and when it's just me and Mama, we're in the kitchen, we're cooking, one way or another.
Do you cook any like food from when you were a kid?
Oh boy, One thing we discussed making beans. That's one of the things Haggard and I used to talk about. I started talking to him about making beans one day, and he goes, "Now hold on." Well, now what? He said, "Well, tell me how you go about making a pot of beans." And I said, "Well, I'll take a little olive oil." I was already off the bacon and all that stuff because that's kind of the way my mom did it.
Sure.
She was brown.
Bacon, lard.
Little bacon. I never saw her using lard, but I know it does happen, especially more in the deep South than in Texas. But bacon and a lot of garlic and I said and then I chopped onion, and Harry said, "Oh, no, that's wrong." I said, he said, "That's wrong." He said, some things are meant to be eaten with onion, not cooked with. And he considered him. Matter of fact, his nickname was the Bean Man.
That was his thing, huh?
Well, he said, and he prefaced all that by saying, he said, you don't grow up poor in Central California without knowing how to make a pot of beans. It is a perfect protein, and so I still make beans. As a matter of fact, I got a big pot of beans right in there now.
All right. So last question: if you can go back in time and do one thing differently, is there anything that you would do differently, either in business or personal?
Oh yeah.
Just one.
Well, when you come up here and you start making your way, and the old timers always told you the same thing. All of them tell you the same thing: save your money. I mean, not to emphasize it so much that it makes, but if there's something I can do to save someone else, I'm sure that's the same thing they were told too.
Sure.
But as far as overall though, no, I'm happy with what I've done. However, again, I'll default back to the same thing we were talking about before. There's only a little time to get a lot done.
Yes.
And you gotta really take inventory of the time. And again, what continues to stand out for me, it's family, 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 and more family. And what I mean by that, I mean certainly the children, but also the immediate family. What's in this house right now?
Hell yeah.
That's what's important to me. And taking care of your craft and taking care of your gift. And other than that, keeping it right with the big man upstairs. Other than that, I don't know. I don't think there's any big secret.
I hear you, man. Listen, I can't thank you enough for everything, for being you, and for taking all this time and sharing stories. And this is just the second or third of, I think, many conversations I hope we'll be having. And thank you, man. You're just a really good guy. Well,
thank you, Craig. Same back at you.
Everyone, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this kind of rare glimpse into Leroy Parnell's life, which I thought was really cool of him to do that. And thanks again to Leroy for spending all the time with us. I really appreciate it. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get notified about future episodes, along with some cool stuff we've got going on. And remember, happiness is a choice. So be nice, go play your guitar, and have some fun. Until next time, peace and love, and I am out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.